Part 4. Let's see how many things happened before I left the island, because what I didn't tell you is that, for the first time in my life, I felt safe having friends. Good friends. Neighbors who became my best friends. Or better said, my family. It's hard to explain. But anyway, the story begins like this. Aside from working at the hospital, after a month or two, I also received a job offer at the airport. Sometimes, in my free time, I worked between 5 to 8 hours, depending on the schedule and the staff needed. I worked in a section of the buyer that, at that time, registered all the planes arriving and departing, including helicopters. On one of those days, I remember that the girl who would later become my friend was leaving for 1 or 2 weeks to another island, where her mother and father held good positions in the government institution and also owned clothing and jewelry stores. My friend's sister, with whom I'm still in touch from time to time, is one of those friends who feel like the family you always wished you had. Anyway, she's from India, and her name is Sneha. She's younger than me, so ever since we became friends, I always felt the need to protect her, but she and the others always protected me too. We would sometimes meet up and go out to eat, and I would end up drunk. I have to say that ever since our paths separated, I never drank alcohol again, because you never really know who people are. And after her and the others, it became very hard for me to make new friends. But it wasn't just Sneha, there was also Karen. Oh my God, the one who didn't like to shower, but she was always kind to me. She was in a relationship with Nick, but it was toxic beyond words. And whenever there were problems in the residence between Karen and Nick, everyone would come to me to see what could be done. Anyway, back to well, she was going on a trip, and they were having problems boarding the flight, and also with their tickets. That day, I had already finished work and was heading home, because I had a night shift at the hospital. I remember it was a Saturday. I approached the group and asked what the problem was, because we weren't friends yet, but I recognized Karen and a few others who lived in my apartment complex, and that's how I met Sneha. It's worth mentioning that she didn't live in the complex. They were medical students on the island of Bonaire, and whenever there were holidays, they would go back home for a week or two. Well, when Sneha came back, 2 weeks later, I saw her again at the hospital, when a university classmate had a serious accident. When I saw her, I was stunned. She was covered in blood, and I thought she was the one who was injured. Stay tuned for part 5.